Hello, pen friends. Welcome to the Pen Habit. My name is Matt, and if you are wondering why I'm still wearing the same shirt that I wore in my last video, it's because I just barely finished recording my last video. So in this video, we're going to talk about workhorse pens or daily writers. Now, this is an interesting category of pen. I don't look at this necessarily as the category of pen for people who want to own a bazillion pens or collect or that sort of thing. This is the category for people who want to buy one really nice pen. They're willing to spend a little extra money for it to get something that will last them a lifetime, that will be 100% reliable, that they can use all day long without having to worry about. This is the pen for writers in my book. So that's how I define these pens. Now, the only rule that I have for these top 5, top 10 videos is that it has to be a pen I have reviewed before. So all of the pens I'm going to talk about today are pens I have reviewed in the past. So let's go ahead and dive in first with an honorable mention. Now, the honorable mention this time is the Delta Fusion 82. The Delta Fusion 82 is an unusual pen, and I've reviewed it. There was a bit of controversy around the marketing materials that were used on the pen. You can read or watch all about it. The link to the full review of that is down in the description of the pen and over on the show notes on penhabit.com. But the short version is that the nib was made by slapping an 18 karat gold saddle on top of a steel nib and calling it an 18 karat fusion nib, and some really bizarre marketing claims around what that did to the ink flow, none of which exist within the realm of reality in physics. So the pen never really took off, and it's a shame that that was the route they took with the pen, because it was a really, really good pen. And that fusion nib, even without the gold saddle, was a really, really good writer. I found it exceptionally comfortable in the hand, very reliable, really attractive. And I had a couple versions. I had one of the stock production versions, and I had an exclusive material for Chatterley Luxuries. Now, the reason it's an honorable mention instead of in the top 5, there are a couple. One is that the whole rigmarole around the fusion nib kind of turned a lot of people off. But the bigger one is these are really, really hard to find now, because it appears that Delta may be going through some financial difficulties. A lot of models have been discontinued. Stock is disappearing from stores. Scuttlebutt in the community is that they're not doing well. So if you are able to come across one of these, I would recommend you snap it up, because chances are they're not going to be available for a whole lot longer. I really liked mine. I don't have it anymore because I found I wasn't using it, not because I didn't like it, but because I just had a lot of other pens I was getting through for review purposes, and it just didn't make the cut for me. But it's a really, really good pen, and prices kind of fluctuate all over the place. I've seen them for as low as $150 and as high as $300. So if you find one for a really good price, snap it up. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Number 5 on my list is a pen that I was introduced to at the LA show in February of 2016. And it is by the German manufacturer Diplomat. It's the Diplomat Aero. Now, this is a really unusual looking pen. It's very unique on the market, in my opinion. It's kind of shaped like a Zeppelin, which is where the Aero name comes from. It's made of aluminum and is anodized with a powder-coated style matte finish. So it's really cool feeling in the hand. It doesn't get slippery and sweaty. It does have the heft of metal, but aluminum is pretty light, so it's not too heavy. But what I think really sets the Diplomats apart, and this is the whole Diplomat line, but I feel like of all of the manufacturers who use steel nibs in their pens, the way Diplomat finishes their nibs is as close to my personal preference of a steel nibbed writing instrument, of any manufacturer out there. I love Diplomat's nibs. I love their gold nibs, but their steel nibs are spectacular. Now, this pen's a little bit pricier. I think it floats around $200 for a steel nibbed version. You can get it with a gold nib as well if you want to, but that does increase the price. I reviewed the black version. There's also a silver and a brown version, and then this year they came out with a really cool orange version, which I have been eyeing a little bit. I did buy the brown version for myself, but ended up selling it again, trying to rotate the collection, get it going, make sure I have more stuff to review. So, in any case, very comfortable in the hand, nicely balanced, really uses standard international cartridges and converters, writes like an absolute dream. People seem to really like this pen. I've seen it popping up a lot in blogs and YouTube reviewers. It's a really good pen. I like it a lot, and that's one of the reasons why it shows up in my top Workhorse pens. Number 4 is from the Ohio-based manufacturer Edison. You've been to a pen show, chances are you've met Brian and Andrea at the Edison table where this looks like a jar of Skittles spread across the table in pen form. They like their colorful pens, and I like color, so we get along real well there. Edison has a couple of different lines of pens. Their regular production line and then what they call their signature line. And number 4, the Edison Menlo, shows up as one of those signature pens. So this is not one you can buy off the shelf from a retailer like you could with the Collier or the Beaumont. This is one that you have to have custom made. And for a pen show, which is where I picked this up, they will pre-make a bunch of these signature line pens in special materials and bring them along so you have them to pick from. This is the electric blue swirl material. It's a translucent material, but it's so dark sometimes it's hard to tell. And one of the things that makes this pen there are a couple things that make this pen really interesting. One is the filling system, and this one comes with the Menlo, with the Edison pump filler. It's a kind of a modern recreation of the Parker Vacuumatic filling system. Got a rubber diaphragm in here, and it works out just fine. They recently, earlier this year, came out with what they call the draw filler, which is very similar, but instead of the plunger pushing down a rubber diaphragm and using the suction to bring ink up, it's attached to a little piston that goes up and down inside the barrel. I think were I to get this pen again, I would get it with the draw filler, not the pump filler, because that latex sac can fail, that latex diaphragm can fail and cause some leakage, and I think mine may have just failed. I've got ink back here in the piston area, which I need to investigate to make sure that that's not, if that's a failure of the latex diaphragm or if there's something else going on. But the other thing that's really special about this pen, in my mind, is the way it fits in the hand. And I talk about this in the video. I get a little new agey and a little abstract, but there is something about the way this particular pen sits in my hand where it just feels like the energy flows right out of the pen through the nib and onto the paper. It feels a little bit longer, and the distance between my fingers and the nib tip is just about perfect for the way I write. Now, the one reason I kind of hesitated to put this on the Workhorse pens list. One is that latex diaphragm does detract a little bit from the "it will last forever" phase, because you have to send it in for a repair or replacement if it breaks, and they will repair it for you. So that's not a problem, so long as the company's around. For me, though, the bigger problem is the price. So this is a $350 pen with a steel nib. That's a very expensive steel nibbed pen. I think it's worth it personally because I really love writing with this pen, as is evidenced by the fact that it's still in my collection. It's a really, really nice pen. I did personally swap out the very, very good steel nib that came with the pen for a gold nib, and I got the bicolor ruthenium and rhodium plated gold nib because I like a little bit bouncier nib when I write. But I love the pen. It's beautiful. The fit in the hand is just about perfect. It's a great writer. I just wish that latex diaphragm, I loved the idea of it, and it does give you a really, really good ink capacity. This is a pen that you can write and write and write and write and write with. The other thing to keep in mind is that Brian Gray, one of the owners of Edison Pens, has studied with the famed nibmeister Richard Binder to kind of get certified to binderize nibs, which is basically Richard Binder is kind of really well known in the community for the way he does nib work, and he's only worked with a few people to give them permission to use his trademark, if you will, on getting nibs to write the way that he thinks they should. And Brian has studied with him, and so if you ask for customizations or adjustments when you order a pen, you can get really, really good nibs tuned exactly the way you want before the pen comes to you. So there's a lot of value here. I'm not saying that the $350 isn't worth it, but for some people, $350 for a steel nib is going to be pretty steep. And that brings us to number 3, the Lamy 2000. That is new on the list this year as well, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But for those who don't know the Lamy 2000, you probably haven't been in the fountain pen community for very long, so welcome. The Lamy 2000 has been around for 60 years. It is an iconic design. It's, very much that Bauhaus style design from the 50s and 60s. Very clean lined, semi-hooded nib. This is right as the ballpoints are starting to come out and gain favor. And I think this was partially the fountain pen's way of dealing with how ballpoints worked. It, kind of covered the nib, kept the pen writing wet. It's a neat design. Now, it didn't make my list in the past, and I don't really know why. I think I might have just forgotten about it, because the Lamy 2000 it's a killer of a workhorse pen. They sell for about $150, $155, $6, something like that. And they're made of Macrolon, which is a fiberglass infused resin. It's got a great brushed finish with a really nice feel in the hand. Their nibs are often very smooth, and it's a piston filler, so it has a massive ink capacity. Those are all the things you need for a really good workhorse pen. It also has a slip top cap, and that semi-hooded nib means that it will stay wet for longer. All of those things are really helpful if you work in a place where your note-taking is maybe not constant, but frequent. It's easy to uncap the pen. You can leave it uncapped and then start writing, and generally it should pick up pretty well. Now, people have complained. I've noticed this a little bit in the past, that the Lamy 2000 can have something of a sweet spot on the nib. I think the complaints of the problem are a bit overblown, including my own in the past are a bit overblown. I've had a chance to use one again recently. I don't have one in my collection anymore, but I have had a chance to use one again recently, and I was reminded, man, I really like this. It's affordable. It is robust. It's a design that has been proven for the last 60 years. They're really, really nice pens. The piston mechanism work well. They have a good ink window. I think if you're looking for something that is understated but still stylish and is going to last you a lifetime of really, really solid use, I don't think you can look much further than the Lamy 2000. I believe that the Japanese manufacturer Platinum is one of the most underappreciated pen brands in our modern fountain pen community. I lay a big part of that blame at the feet of the U.S. distributor, largely because of the markup in price between the pen in Japan versus the pen here in the United States, and some of the practices that have developed around how the pen is sold internationally. But I will tell you that I think that the Platinum 3776 is one of the best workhorse pens on the market right now. I have loved this pen since I got my very first one. I've reviewed 4 or 5 of them at this point. This is my personal favorite Platinum 3776. This is the Chartreuse Blue. It has a medium 14 karat gold nib. It's just about the most rock solid pen I own. This is the pen I signed my mortgage with to buy my house. I signed my refinance with. This is the pen I fill up with waterproof ink and use when I go to sign papers or things like that. This is my signature pen. I use this to sign checks. It's almost always got something that's waterproof in it, and I love this pen. So, couple things that make this a perfect workhorse pen. For starters, it's quite affordable. Here in the U.S., they sell for about $160, maybe a little bit more. I don't remember right off the top of my head. I think it's about $155, $160, something like that. You can get them for cheaper through eBay if you want to do that. This one I think I paid about $103 for, and $103, this is a steal of a pen. The nibs from Platinum are perfectly adjusted. They're not too wet, they're not too dry. Now, if you like a feedback or a toothiness on your nib that isn't scratchy, but just lets you know that there's some friction going on, Platinum has maybe some of the best nibs on the market. They don't necessarily do that super buttery smooth, but the way they are polished, it's real easy to get them to super buttery smooth if that's what you like. Since that is what I like, I'll buy a Platinum, run a few figure eights on some micro mesh, and that's all I need to do. They have made it so it's very easy to polish to super smooth. It's really smooth otherwise, but it's just a little bit feedbacky, kind of like a pencil is, versus just a perfectly polished round nib. They don't have tremendous ink capacity, unfortunately. They do use proprietary converters, which I'm not a huge fan of, but one of the neat features about these pens are what they call the slip and seal mechanism. So there is an inner cap that twists and really tightens down. And according to Platinum's marketing materials, that will keep the nib ready to write for up to 2 years. So if you're a frequent capper, uncapper, or your pens sit around for a long time, this is one you might want to consider. They post really nicely. When they post, they're excellently comfortable in the hand for me. They can also be used unposted. It feels just a bit light to me, but if you've got smaller hands and you want to use it unposted, you certainly could. These are really, really nice pens. I like them a lot. My only real complaint is they're kind of boring from the design perspective, but if you're looking for something understated that's going to write like a champ and last you a lifetime, again, really good value for a Workhorse pen. And thus, we come to number one. This is my number one Workhorse pen. And I will tell you right now that if someone said, you could only have one pen for the rest of your life, what pen would you pick? Once I weaned myself off of a couple of other choices, this would be right up near the top. And I'll tell you again, ahead of time, this pen's going to make an appearance in the top 10 list. It's that good. This is the Pilot Custom 823. So I talk about this in my review of the Pilot Custom 823, but I put off buying this pen for a long, long time. A couple reasons why. I don't love the design of the pen, and I don't love the material that it's available with here in the United States. Here in the US, we only get a single one of these colors. In Japan, you can get 2 or 3 other varieties, and I don't love this amber material. But it's a pretty standard cigar-shaped pen. It is, in the US, pretty much the flagship pen for Pilot, and I got into a comment argument with someone the other day. This is not Pilot's flagship pen, but here in US, Pilot USA does not bring in Pilot's flagship pen, so in the US, I consider this to be their flagship. They've got another one, the 845, so if you really want to argue about it, I will concede the point that it is not their flagship pen. I call this their flagship here, their US flagship, because they don't bother bringing in the 845. That being said, back to this. So the Pilot 823 has a gorgeous big nib that's nice and bouncy and wet and really, really smooth. It's a vacuum filler, so it's got basically the whole barrel is the ink capacity. It's got a huge ink capacity. It's very comfortable in the hand. It's a consistent writer. If someone were to say to me, I want one pen, I'll spend up to $300. I want one pen that's going to last me a lifetime, that I don't need to refill every 2 days. This is the pen I would recommend. At $288 in the US, it is not a cheap pen. You can get it for a little bit cheaper if you buy it directly from Japan. But it is a really, really, really good writer. You can tell I've got it inked right now. I basically haven't had it uninked since I bought it. And that's pretty unusual for me because I rotate through my pens. But when I sit down for a long writing session, if I'm working on a novel or an essay or even a review, this is often the pen I will turn to because I can just unscrew the cap to open up the ink flow and let it run. Now, this does have the vacuum filler plunger where you can if you tighten down the blind cap, It's kind of like a double reservoir. So what's in the nib and feed will stay there, and you can write until it runs out. And what's in the barrel is not accessible unless you unscrew the cap back here like this. That is really helpful for people who travel a lot or who don't want to run the risk of their pen leaking as they change elevation or travel around a lot. But it does mean that if you're going to do a lot of long form writing, you're going to need to just make sure you remember to unscrew the back of the pen to let the ink flow. I don't love that personally, but I can recognize and appreciate the value of that for people who do need it. So that is my Workhorse pen video. Make sure to head over to penhabit.com to see photos and blurbs of all these pens. You can also find links to the individual reviews down in the show descriptions here on YouTube or over on penhabit.com as well. And one quick note, if you aren't aware of this, YouTube has changed its algorithm for what videos it recommends and shows to you. So, and it does this all the time. One of the things that it has done recently is it has boosted the importance of new content. And I don't publish content on a super regular basis. These videos often take quite a bit of work to put together. So I don't get to put them out every day or every couple of days or even every week. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. So if you want to make sure you don't miss anything, follow me on twitter.com/penhabit or on facebook.com/penhabit, or on YouTube, turn on notifications for this channel and you'll be notified every time a new video is uploaded. You could also support me on Patreon. You'll get a notification every time I put a new video up there as well. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me here. Excuse me. I've been talking for a long time this morning. Don't forget to check back soon for the top 10 video of season 4, which will be the final video of the season. It should be coming out very, very shortly. And we look forward to seeing you for that because there are some pretty pens in that list. So we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.